Hello, everybody! Happy Sunday! Happy Final Fantasy Day! Not actually, but what's awesome is this year. Did you know that they were re-releasing Final Fantasy IX for the PS4? Cause I sure didn't until they announced it this week, and then I bought it. It's great. I think it's still on sale for one more day. And I think, this 30th anniversary year for Final Fantasy is just really showing us just what a great time it is to be a gamer. There are so many awesome games coming out right now across the board, across genres, including my personal favorite, the role-playing games. Square Enix, of course, is cornering the market as per usual, in my view. And sorry, I'm just getting distracted watching this. So Square Enix is still cornering the market and really, of course, milking Final Fantasy because it's a Final Fantasy 30th anniversary. So they are using that for all that it's worth. But in a lot of ways, I'm still benefiting even though I'm having to spend a lot of money. So it kind of balances out. Not actually, but a little bit. But what I wanted to talk about today was in this great time of video games and RPGs, are we going to have another actual golden age of RPGs? Obviously, this is all based on my opinion, so you may disagree on what the best RPGs are, what makes the best RPG, so on and so forth. So definitely chime in with your view in the comments. But for me, I'm going to just start by looking at some of the classics, what I think was the golden age, and where we are today in relation to that. Final Fantasy IX is going to be out in the background because this is a new thing to play with. But I am actually going to talk a lot about the Project Octopath Traveler demo, which was released recently from the Nintendo Switch, using that as an example of a new RPG. So, let's begin. I tend to think that the Super Nintendo was really the golden age of video games. I know I'm not alone in that. And although there's lots of great things about other systems, it's always going to be about the Super Nintendo for me. And Tailed Human. His race is Tailed Human. Did you know that was a race? Okay, sorry. I'm not going to mess with these things today. So, oh yeah, and you can definitely tell the graphics have been smoothed over a bit. Anyway, Final Fantasy IX is actually the, with the exception of 13, because I played all the Final Fantasies out of order, 13 was the most recent one I played, and 9 was the second most recent. So it hasn't actually been that long since I played this game for the first time, maybe 3 years. Anyway, so the Super Nintendo, particularly Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, Super Mario RPG, those are probably the greatest, maybe with a little bit of the Mana series thrown in, maybe even Illusion of Gaia if I'm being generous. I have some mixed feelings about whether or not Illusion of Gaia is a good game. The same with Secret of Mana. I really love it. Not 100% sure it's actually a good game. So, now what makes them so good Well, to me, it's a few factors. First of all, the story, the characters have to be pretty universal. If everything is focused on one idea or like a particular theme or a particular allegory that isn't 100% universal, it's limiting itself some way. But if you're dealing with understanding human emotions, if you're dealing with friendship, love, loyalty, these things are gonna be universal. Which is something that Final Fantasy does really well, especially, I think, Final Fantasy VI. It's just amazing. The characters also have to be really varied. If everybody is kind of the same, then you're not going to be able to appeal to a lot of people. So again, Final Fantasy VI, which is going to be my main example, I admit it's my favorite game of all time, period. Definitely my favorite RPG. There's just no second guess about it. But with a cast of 13 characters, no, not quite that many. But no, maybe if you count secret characters, it's up there. So with that huge of a cast, I mean, there's a lot for people to get from it. So cute, the little fake Princess Garden doll. Alright. So, to me, those are probably like the two most important things. And then, you want timeless graphics. I kind of talked about that last time. Beautiful graphics don't make or break a game, but bad graphics break it. Good music. You're going to be playing this game for a really long time. You want the music to engage you, etc., etc. The other thing I really want to add to that, though, is I really, really miss multiplayer. Right? Most of the games I mentioned, admittedly, are only single player, but Final Fantasy VI and the Mana series, those were multiplayer. And so I think, for me, part of the golden age is really being able to play video games with somebody. Games still do that, of course, quite a bit, both Nintendo and other consoles. But usually it's, racing games, fighting games, shoot 'em up, FPS, which is fine. I mean, obviously they make very good multiplayer games, but there's nothing like sharing a deep story with someone. So even Final Fantasy VI, which was barely multiplayer, it was still multiplayer enough that, I sat down and I played it with my brother. Like, to me, growing up with the Super Nintendo, you can't underestimate how important multiplayer is, which I think is one of the weaknesses today. And this is where I think my opinion gets a little bit more controversial, but I'm going to try my best to explain. Controversial might be a strong word. But I'm going to try to explain it my best. Is that, I want universal plots, being able to play it with other people, and a part of that is you don't want anything too inappropriate in that game. So if I'm playing something with another person, I don't want really graphic scenes. I don't want a lot of explicit language, etc., because then you're going to alienate some of the audience, and it just makes it more awkward to play, frankly. Okay, so apparently a card game is existing. Alright. So, to me, that last element is the most difficult. As video games have developed, a lot of game designers are, I guess, aiming at a little bit of a higher rated audience, which, like, it's fine. It's not necessarily, it's not wrong for them to do that. Every game has its own target audience, and that's fine. But I don't think you can have another golden age if you don't have games that can both be very deep without being offensive. I think that's something that modernity is struggling with a little bit. And rah rah rah. I like that old man. Rah 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 rah. Ah, he fell over. Oh, Vivi, you're the best. Vivi is the actual best. And that's one reason why I really love the Final Fantasy series. Obviously, there are mature themes and everything like that. But it handles things generally delicately. And I was once on a Twitch stream with a couple people from the London offices of Square Enix, and they were saying that it is very unlikely a main title Final Fantasy will ever get above a teen rating, and I really like that. Because I do think that needs to exist in order to share it with more people. I'm not a mother, I'm not married, but if, God willing, I ever do get married and have kids, obviously I really want to share RPGs with them, and it'll be easy to share with them the Final Fantasy series, mostly, most of the main title Final Fantasy games, and it'll be easy particularly to share Final Fantasy VI, my favorite game. It'll be easy to share Chrono Trigger. It'll be easy to share Secret of Mana. Hopefully there'll be more Mana titles released. But I'm not sure about other RPGs. And that's a little sad. Tokyo RPG Factory, I think, is really working on that. They're the ones who made I Am Setsuna, which, granted, received some mixed review, and I understand why. But I think it was really beautiful, and I think it's very shareable. But that takes me to the other Square Enix game that's coming out. So Tokyo RPG Factory is one, I don't quite know all the specifics of it, but it's one specific kind of studio in Square Enix. And And another group is making Project Octopath, the people who made Bravely Default. I love Bravely Default. I finally finished it not too long ago, and although the boss rush is a thing of torture, nevertheless, I really do want to play Bravely Default 2, and I was so excited to see Project Octopath announced at the Switch reveal, because they've been working on it kind of since the beginning, as it were. Aww. Poor Vivi. Anyway, I like the sign. That was a pretty sign. So, when I played the Project Octopath demo, I was obviously totally excited. And I played the Knight's Path first. If I'm not lazy, I'm gonna be lazy. I was gonna share some pictures from the demo. Just check out my Twitter. And so I really love the Knight's Path. I think it did, really great. Very serious, got very dark very quickly, but to a more manageable level. Then I played Primrose's Path, the Dancer, and I'm using Dancer very euphemistically. I can't remember what they call it. But, I mean, she's a prostitute. And that's really uncomfortable. And of course there are particular ways to kind of deal with that storyline that would play it down. But let's just say they did not play it down at all. Sure, they used euphemisms, but not a lot of them. And, that is not something I would feel comfortable playing with anybody who is of an impressionable age. The story, and don't get me wrong, the storyline is great. I totally loved, her voice actor killed it, first of all. And second of all, I was almost in tears. It was just such a heartbreaking story, as, that style of life is. It's heartbreaking what people are put through. And even though the protagonist, Primrose, willingly chose this in order to find the people who killed her father, it just breaks her heart. And so this is kind of why I'm skeptical that we will get back to a perfect golden age of RPGs. We might have a brilliant game here and there, but I think that but I think that generally the tone of the games is getting too mature, I guess, to be universal. And so we, 30-year-old gamers, we're getting a lot of great games. And we are really spoiled. And the stories are deep and the characters are fleshed out, and it's amazing. But there are only so many now that we can share with anyone without having to kind of explain certain aspects. So, I know that you have to go with them, but I'm gonna be a brat right now. So, that's, I guess, all that I really wanted to say. I don't want it to be a sour note that I end on, my soapbox. Because again, I do think there are so many great games being made now, and there are so many wonderful stories being told, but I am going to put out a plea for more cooperative, multiplayer, but not massive online multiplayer RPGs, more linear-based RPGs that can really be shared by the whole family. And that's what I hope for going forward. Which is probably why always in my heart of hearts, despite how awesome the PS4 is, I will always be a Nintendo girl, and I am so, so excited for the Nintendo Switch and for what's going to come out on it. So everybody, stay tuned. We'll see if we get to another golden age of RPGs, but I think things are too spread out nowadays. But it's probably just nostalgia talking, let's be honest. But even with that said, enjoy all these wonderful games that are coming out. And until next time, next week I'll probably be talking more about Nintendo, actually. Which will be great. So look forward to that. And until then, Interceptor out.